In this video, we unveil the gripping tale of a man who set out to sail around the world alone at 60, chasing freedom, adventure, and the dream of a life unbound by land. Laughed at by friends and doubted by family, he faced not just the ocean's wrath but his own fears and limitations. What went wrong? What went right? This isn't just an inspiring story, it's a raw, unfiltered look at the triumphs and trials of solo sailing, packed with lessons for every cruiser, dreamer, and ocean wanderer. We'll walk you through the heart-pounding moments, the mistakes that nearly cost everything, and the hard-won victories that prove age is no barrier to greatness. From battling storms to fixing critical gear in the middle of nowhere, this journey exposes the fragile line between disaster and success. You'll learn practical steps to avoid the same pitfalls, drawn from real experience and the unforgiving school of the sea. So, before you cast off for your next passage, stay with us. This story could save your boat tour, your life. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss another essential tale of nautical grit, survival, and the stark reality of life on the water. Let's dive in. Alex Turner was an ordinary man with an extraordinary dream. At 60, he was a retired engineer living in Portland, Maine, where the cold Atlantic lapped at the docks he'd known since childhood. For decades, he'd sailed the coastal waters of New England. First on his father's old Pearson, 26, then on progressively larger boats as his skills grew. Alex was no stranger to the rhythm of the tides or the creak of a hull under strain. He'd weathered squalls in the Gulf of Maine and navigated foggy nights with a steady hand. But in 2021, as he sat in his small apartment, staring at a weathered chart of the world, a fire kindled inside him. He wanted to circumnavigate the globe, to sail alone and prove that age was just a number. His friends at the local yacht club chuckled. "Alex, you're too old for that nonsense," they'd say, shaking their heads. His daughter, Clara, 34, worried he'd never make it back. "Dad, why risk it alone?" she asked, her voice cracking. But Alex knew this was his shot to live a story worth telling. The boat he chose was a Naiad 42. A Swedish-built cruiser he named Second Wind, a nod to his new chapter. Built in 1998, she was no flashy yacht but a workhorse designed for blue water passage making. At 42 feet, with a 12-foot beam and a 6-foot draft, she displaced 22,000 pounds, her full keel offering stability in heavy seas. Her 900-square-foot sail plan, powered by a 75-horsepower Volvo Pentadiesel, could push her to 7 knots in fair winds. Alex spent a year refitting Second Wind in a Portland boatyard, pouring his savings and sweat into making her ocean. He installed a new North Sails mainsail in Genoa, both triple-stitched for durability. A 200-gallon water tank and 100-gallon fuel tank were scrubbed and tested for long passages. He added a water maker producing 8 gallons per hour and a 400-watt solar array charging a 600 mPOA HEM battery bank. Navigation came via ABNG chart plotter, ICE transponder, and a single sideband radio for long-range comms. Safety gear included a 406 MHz EPIRB, a personal locator beacon, and a 12-foot inflatable dinghy. Every through-hole was inspected, every seacock greased, the standing rigging 1x19 stainless steel wire was replaced, and a Hydrovane wind vane steering system was mounted for Alex wasn't just preparing a boat, he was building a lifeline. His route was a classic westbound circumnavigation, starting from Portland in June 2022. He'd sail down the U.S. East Coast to Norfolk, Virginia, then make a 1,500-mile jump to the Caribbean. From there, he'd transit the Panama Canal, cross the Pacific to the Marquesas, hit Tahiti, Fiji, and Australia, then navigate the Indian Ocean to Mauritius and South Africa. The final leg would cross the Atlantic back to the U.S., a 26,000-mile odyssey. It was a well-trodden path among cruisers, with established stops for provisioning, but the risks were real. The Pacific's vastness, the Indian Ocean's sudden storms, and the Atlantic's hurricane season demanded respect. Alex prepared meticulously, studying weather patterns, reading logs from solo sailors like Joshua Slocum, and lurking on forums where crusty old salts swapped hard-earned tips. He knew the odds but believed in his boat and himself. The departure from Portland was bittersweet. Clara stood on the dock, tears in her eyes, waving as Second Wind's white hull caught the morning sun. A crowd of yacht club skeptics watched, half expecting him to turn back. Alex felt a knot in his stomach but pushed it down, focusing on the 10-knot breeze filling his sails. The first leg to Norfolk was smooth, with Second Wind averaging 6 knots under a broad reach. He anchored in Hampton Roads, double-checking systems and topping off fuel before the Caribbean passage. The 1,500-mile crossing tested his endurance. For days out, a squall hit with 25-knot winds and 8-foot seas. Alex reefed the mainsail to 60% and rolled in half the Genoa, keeping Second Wind on a stable course. The Hydrovane held steady, but the autopilot struggled, its clutch slipping under load. He hand-steered for 6 hours, clipped to a jackline, his harness tether taut, exhausted but unscathed. he reached St. Lucia, anchoring in Rodney Bay to cheers from fellow cruisers. He'd proven he could handle the open ocean dash alone. In St. Lucia, Alex celebrated with a rum punch, swapping stories with liveaboards. He noticed a small tear in the Genoa, likely from the squall's flogging. Using a sewing machine, he patched it with Dacron tape, vowing to replace it in Panama. Provisioning was a learning curve. He crammed 200 pounds of rice, beans, and canned goods into Second Wind's lockers, balancing weight to keep her trim. The watermaker clogged once, forcing him to flush it with vinegar, a messy job that taught him to pre-filter coastal water. These were the realities of solo cruising: constant maintenance, quick fixes, and adapting on the fly. In Grenada, he found pitting on a lower shroud, a sign of corrosion in the saltwater air. He replaced it with a spare 20-foot length of 3/8-inch wire, using Norseman fittings for a secure splice. The repair took a sweltering day, but it was a reminder: neglect nothing at sea. The Panama Canal transit in January 2023 was a bureaucratic maze. Alex paid $2,800 in fees, hired line handlers, and navigated the Gatun locks, rafted to a 50-foot catamaran. The 50-mile passage took 2 days, with Second Wind dodging freighters and fighting 6-knot currents. Emerging into the Pacific, Alex felt a surge of awe. The world's largest ocean lay ahead, a 4,200-mile crossing to the Marquesas. He stocked up in Panama City, filling every locker with provisions and topping off the 100-gallon diesel tank. Good for 400 hours at 2,000 RPM. The Pacific crossing was a 32-day marathon, the longest of his life. Alex settled into a rhythm of 4-hour watches, napping in 20-minute bursts. He sailed wing on wing. The mainsail to port in Genoa pulled out to starboard, catching 15-knot trades for 140 miles a day. The watermaker hummed, but a clogged membrane cut output, forcing him to ration water for 3 days until he swapped the filter. He caught Dorado with a handline, grilling fillets on a propane stove. At night, bioluminescent plankton lit Second Wind's wake like a starry trail. But the solitude gnawed. No land, no voices, just the creak of the rig and the hiss of waves. He talked to himself, sang old Dylan tunes, and checked in via SSB radio with the Pacific Net, their crackly voices a lifeline. Halfway across, disaster loomed. The autopilot's hydraulic ram failed, its seals blown from overuse. Second Wind veered off course, sails flapping. Alex engaged the hydrovane, but it couldn't handle the 10-foot swells. He hand-steered for 48 hours, his arms burning, sleep a distant memory. In calmer seas, he rebuilt the ram with a spare seal kit, a job in the cockpit, tools slipping in sweaty hands. The repair held, but it was a wake-up call. Redundancy wasn't optional. In the Marquesas anchoring in Atuana, Hiva Oa, Alex collapsed in his bunk, overwhelmed by relief. He spent weeks exploring, trading canned peaches for mangoes with locals, their smiles easing his loneliness. The Pacific kept testing him. In Tahiti, a mainsail seam split, requiring a day's stitching with the sail. In Fiji, the diesel tank grew sludge, clogging filters. Alex flushed it with Biocida, a grimy 2-day job, while scrubbing the hull to gain half a knot. These weren't glamorous moments, but they defined solo sailing: grit, ingenuity, and no one else to rely on. By August 2023, Alex reached Cairns, Australia, after a 2,600-mile passage from Fiji. The Great Barrier Reef demanded precision, with coral heads lurking under the surface. He navigated by daylight, eyes glued to the chart plotter and depth sounder. In Cairns, he hauled Second Wind for anti-fouling, applying 2 coats of copper paint to fend off barnacles. He also upgraded the anchor chain to 200 feet of 3/8-inch G4, shaving weight without losing strength. Socially, he thrived, joining cruiser barbecues and soaking up tips for the Indian Ocean. The camaraderie of the sailing tribe was a bomb after months alone. But the next leg, 2,100 miles to Mauritius, loomed large, known for rogue waves and sudden squalls. Alex inspected Second Wind stem to stern, but one oversight lingered: the boom preventer line. A 5/8-inch Dyneema showed UV fraying. He meant to replace it but got distracted by a faulty bilge pump. It was a small mistake, one mini cruiser's make, but it would soon haunt him. Alex set sail from Cocos Keeling in November 2023. Second Wind slicing through the Indian Ocean's turquoise swells. The 2,100-mile passage to Mauritius was a gauntlet of variable winds and unpredictable weather. For the first week, he enjoyed steady 20-knot trades, Second Wind averaging 6.5 knots under a broad reach. He monitored weather via Iridium satellite, downloading GRIB files twice daily. Life settled into a rhythm: check the rig at dawn, plot his position, eat a meal of canned stew, and nap when the sea allowed. But the solitude was heavier here, the vast ocean amplifying his doubts. Am I crazy for this? He scribbled in his log on day 8. A pod of dolphins answered, leaping alongside Second Wind, their playful arcs lifting his spirits. He laughed aloud, the sound foreign after days of silence. On day 12, the Indian Ocean showed its teeth. A low-pressure system, missed in his last GRIB download, spawned a squall with 40-knot gusts and 12-foot seas. Alex reefed the mainsail to its second point and furled the Genoa to a handkerchief. But the boom preventer line, the one he'd neglected, groaned under strain. At 3 a.m., a rogue wave lifted second winds, stern, shifting the wind. The mainsail jibed violently, and the frayed preventer snapped like a gunshot. The 18-foot aluminum boom swung across the cockpit, missing Alex's head by inches and slamming into the Traveler. The mainsail tore along a batten, flapping wildly. Clipped to a jackline, Alex scrambled to drop the sail, his headlamp flickering in the boat's violent lurch. Rain stung his face as he wrestled the canvas into submission, securing it with sail ties. The hydrovane held course, but second wind pitched in the chaos. Below, a locker had burst, spilling tools and canned goods across the cabin sole. Heart racing, Alex assessed the damage. The boom was intact, but the mainsail tier was a 6-foot gash, and the preventer was gone. He hoisted a storm jib, stabilizing second wind at 3 knots, and deployed a drogue to slow her in the breaking seas. In the dim cabin, he stitched the mainsail by hand, his fingers raw from the needle through hours of work. The repair was ugly, but held. He cursed his oversight with the preventer at $30 line. Could have spared this nightmare. He rigged a new one from spare Dyneema, doubling its strength. Exhausted, he collapsed, the storm's howl fading as he drifted to sleep. Morning brought calmer seas, but the ordeal left him shaken. He'd danced with disaster and lived, but the ocean didn't give free passes. The next crisis came near Mauritius. Navigating a narrow pass into Port Louis, Alex misjudged a coral head on the depth sounder glitching in silty water. Second, wind's keel grazed the reef, a sickening grind echoing through the hull. He threw the helm over, engine roaring, and freed her, but his pulse pounded. Anchoring in the lagoon, he dove to inspect. A 3-foot scrape on the keel. No structural. Damn it, the glitch was a loose transducer cable. An easy fix. He should have checked pre-passage. It was another lesson. Never trust electronics without a backup. In Port Louis, he celebrated survival with a local beer, but the near miss lingered. A reminder of how fast things could unravel. The Indian Ocean behind him, Alex reached Cape Town, South Africa. In February 2024, the city's Table Mountain was a beacon after months of sea. He hauled second wind for a full survey, finding hairline cracks in a chain plate, likely stressed from the jib squall. He replaced them with beefier 316 stainless steel, a $1,200 job that felt like cheap insurance. Socially, he soaked up the cruiser community, their stories of storms and sunsets fueling him for the Atlantic crossing. But a health scare loomed. A cut on his hand, sliced while filleting fish, turned red and swollen. With no doctor for weeks, he dosed it with antibiotics. From his medical kit, managing pain with grit and ibuprofen, the infection cleared, but it was a stark reminder: call alone. You're your own medic. The 3,800-mile Atlantic leg from Cape Town to Barbados was Alex's final hurdle. He departed in April 2024, riding the South Atlantic trades. A week out, loneliness hit hard. Day 15, I miss Clara's voice, he wrote. The sea's beautiful, but brutal. A radio call from a freighter, checking on his tiny sailboat, snapped him out of it. He fished, read dog-eared paperbacks, and marveled at flying fish skittering the deck. But the ocean had one last test. A fuel line clogged, starving the Volvo engine. In 15-foot swells, Alex bled the system, diesel fumes choking the cabin as he swapped filters. It took 4 hours, his body aching, but the engine sputtered to life. He laughed through tears, high on adrenaline. On June 6, 2024, Alex sighted Barbados. 18 months and 26,100 miles since Portland. He anchored in Carlisle Bay, hands trembling as he furled the sails. A dinghy ferried him ashore, where Clara waited, her hug erasing months of doubt. The yacht club skeptics, now silent, raised glasses in awe. Alex, weathered but unbroken, stood tall. A second wind carried me, he said, but I carried myself. His journey wasn't flawless. Mistakes like the preventer and reef graze nearly ended it, but preparation and grit prevailed. He'd proven age was no limit. What went wrong? The preventer snap was a $3 oversight. A fresh line would have held. The reef graze came from trusting a glitchy sounder. A lead line could have caught it. The infection was a hygiene lapse, avoidable with better gloves. What went right? Alex's pre-redundant systems, spare parts, and weather training saved him as hydrovane steered through autopilot failure. His EPIRB stood ready for worst-case scenarios. Lessons for sailors. Inspect every line, from preventives to halyards. For UV Weardine Mace King for strength. Test electronics, pre-passage, and carry manual backups. Stock a robust medical kit and know your drugs. Monitor whether comes beat SSB bets. And always clip on. Alex's story isn't just a tale. It's a blueprint. Plan ruthlessly, adapt fast, and never let doubters dim your dream. Back in Portland, Alex shared his log at a yacht club talk. His voice, steady as he urged sailors to check rigs and trust their gut. He sails second wind on Maine's coast now, teaching Clara to helm his dream alive. His circumnavigation wasn't about glory, but proof you can do the impossible. At 60 or any age, if you're ready to face the sea's truth, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories of grit, survival, and the ocean's raw call. Fair winds, and stay safe out there.